Why did you break up with your last partner? I've never been the one to break up with someone. My last partner broke up with me 2 weeks before our wedding because the guy that always got away was single and in town. They dated for a year. He stole her money, knocked her up, and disappeared. She called me back after all that and asked if we could get back together. I laughed and hung up. Story 2. Not only did he cheat on me, but worse for me was that he stayed up all night, every single night, playing video games. And then he would sleep all day while he was supposed to be watching our kids who were nowhere near old enough to be alone. I remember coming home from work one day and hearing my oldest daughter talking to her sister. She said, "I'm hungry too. We just have to wait for mom to get home and she'll feed us." Took the kids and left after that. Story 3. Had a cop show up at my door one day looking for him while he was at work. I asked why, and the cop said, may have had something to do with suggestive images being sent through Discord and text message. The cop ended up waiting on the porch for him to come home. I called my fiancé at work. Once they talked for a bit, the cop took his phone and confirmed everything. I took my cat, my phone charger, and a duffel bag of clothes and left that night. Screw that. Story 4. She threatened to end it all nearly every time we had an argument and wouldn't seek help for what was clearly depression. Just denied. And it was so exhausting feeling responsible for someone else's emotions. Not to mention, she was ashamed to tell her parents about us and went off on me for asking for some time alone because my granddad was literally suffering from cancer. But we were high schoolers and took it all too seriously to begin with. Story 5. Incompatibility is a pain. We spent 3.5 years together. Overall, it was a good relationship. She was and still is very attractive and witty, and we're still friends to this day. However, we simply could not live together long term, and we reached the point in the relationship where it was either time to propose or time to end it. Her style of doing things was vastly different from mine. There were things she needed in the relationship that I was ill-equipped to provide, some of which being a result of my own immaturity and insecurities, but the biggest problem was that our goals in life became irreconcilable as we matured. It was heartbreaking to end it, but the alternative was an inevitable descent into a resentful and loveless marriage. There was already toxicity brewing, and the seeds of a potential cruel relationship were long since sown. It was doomed, the equivalent of an ailing body racked with agonizing pain due to terminal illness. It was time to pull the plug. She's since found someone she's happy with, and I'm taking an extended break from dating to focus on self-improvement and improving my mental health and self-confidence. Story 6. He's an absolutely lovely person in his unique and weird way, but we had one of those unbalanced relationships where I was expected to act more like a mother than a girlfriend, taking care of him and housework. We also had nothing in common apart from just history. We didn't do anything together. He was never willing to watch something I liked and never initiated any activity. We were just two lonely people when we met, and though a relationship would mend us, we didn't think about what we loved about each other, which wasn't much. Story 7. She left me a letter while I was at work saying she was essentially moving out for a month. On the way out, she stole my dog, a bunch of my stuff, and $20,000 from my side hustle. She ended the letter with how some time apart would be good for us, that she loved me still, and in 4 weeks, we could go back to normal after she had some time to herself. She was insisting we weren't breaking up, just taking a pause. I never got a reason for the sudden pause in the 2 days I tried to figure out what happened. It was so odd and out of character. I packed up her stuff, which was all still in my house, had a friend drop it off to her, and then texted her that it was over. She didn't seem to think it was a huge deal or that I should be upset since it wasn't a breakup. I found out later she was cheating and apparently a thief. I decided she was right about some time apart, except my timeline was forever. Story 8. She was cruel and not loyal. She told me she had fantasies about my best friend right before her 2-year anniversary, and she wanted to sleep with him, despite him being in a happy relationship for 3+ years. She wanted to tell him that she did it with thoughts of him and wanted to get closer to him. Still trying to heal from everything that had happened a couple of months ago, but I'm just glad she didn't mess up my relationship with my best friend and his relationship with his girlfriend. Story 9. I'd been having unprotected intimacy for about 1.5 years. She was on the pill, and yes, I know it's not 100%. However, she has cysts in her ovaries, pretty much making it statistically impossible for her to get pregnant. In summer 2018, we were going through what I believe to be a rough patch. We had been arguing a lot and whatnot, and one afternoon we're laying in bed. At this point, I was agreeing with whatever she said to get her to shut up because I was sick of the bickering and fighting. She looks at me and says, "We should have a kid." I fake think about it for a bit and say, "Okay." But I also say, "It's going to take like a month or two for your birth control to wear off, right?" Believing I had a window of opportunity to talk her out of an incredibly stupid idea, considering we lacked the funding to keep ourselves afloat, let alone another human being. She hugs me and says, "No, I stopped taking it 1.5 months ago." And that moment right there is when I lost all feelings for her. Not only had she gone off for birth control and failed to tell me about it, leading me to believe there was no chance of a child, but even worse, she had decided to make this life-changing decision for the both of us without consulting my feelings on it until after she made the decision. Story 10. She basically accused me of trying to cheat on her, which I wasn't. We went out and met up with some of her friends. I went to the bathroom and noticed that my hair was a mess, so I fixed it. I didn't want to look stupid in front of her friends. Went back to the table, and in less than 5 minutes, I was being accused of trying to impress some girl that had just come in before I went to the bathroom. I didn't even notice this girl, let alone interact or even look at her. It made me so angry that I asked her friends if they could give her a ride home as I was leaving. She decided to leave with me and kept going on about it in the drive home. We'd been living together for about a year. Anyway, this started a whole big fight. I dropped her off at home and left and moved out the next day while she was at work. I told her I was leaving, and I've not seen her since. Of course, this wasn't the only cause. It was just the last straw. Story 11. We were long distance, and she started getting mad at me if I went anywhere or did anything without telling her. We got into an argument about it, and she said, "Well, you should just break up with me then." I agreed it was a good idea and broke it off. She got really upset and begged and pleaded for me not to, but I told her it was too late. She had some abandonment issues that I tried to talk to her about in the past, but she denied she had them. Unfortunately, those issues caused a self-fulfilling prophecy. That was almost a decade ago. I've been with my wife for 7 years, married for 4. Story 12. It was really hard to be actively seeking mental health help, going to therapy, taking my meds, etc. Well, he refused to do so. He had stopped taking his and had spent the last year of our relationship lying to his parents about his college attendance. I threatened to break up with him if I didn't tell them, and we both ended up moving back to our respective hometowns. The distance made me rethink a lot of our relationship, and I broke up with him. Story 13. She broke up with me, but it was for the best. We showed love in different ways that were incompatible, but instead of talking to me about it, she just texted me, "This isn't working. We should break up." I was thinking we could at least be friends or something, but no. She talks badly about me constantly and makes fun of me for trying to show my love. That hurts. It doesn't make me sad, it just makes me angry that after 4 months, she's still doing it. And one day, she and her friends were talking to my friends that I was with, and I was staying out of it, but they made it a point to say that she had a boyfriend at least 6 times to try making me jealous or something. I don't know. Story 14. Became increasingly untrustworthy with money. Threw away everything we built over nearly 20 years on his pipe dream business idea, which he would never give up on, no matter how much money he lost year after year. I finally had enough and walked away. After I left, the business finally went under and he never recovered, ending up living with his mother. I, on the other hand, have slowly rebuilt my finances and my life with someone else more dependable and less reckless. Moral, don't fall in love with a dreamer. Story 15. Emotional cruelty, manipulation, toxicity. The list goes on, really. I knew I was right to leave because he posted my suggestive pics on Whisper afterwards and tried his best to convince me his WhatsApp was hacked and that it wasn't him, and he was utterly sorry this was happening to me. Lol. He then continued to pester me and make me feel bad about my physical appearance, too. I broke up with him in June or July of 2019, and until this day, he tries to message me on Instagram, after having made new accounts, too. Blocked and deleted every time. He's a scary person. I was 16 and so impressionable and naive. He was 20. Took me 2 years to realize what an awful person I let into my life. He guilt-tripped me and gaslit me all the time. I had to secretly play video games with my friends behind his back because he didn't like the game, so if I played it, he would hate me. He would hate on my best friend and other friends. He genuinely thought I was lying when I said my best friend is gay. God, this is making my brain boil just thinking about everything again, so I'll stop here. Story 16. She cheated on me while I was deployed. I didn't even find out until I had been home for 2 months and a random text from a new number sent me the videos. I was upset because, frankly, before I deployed, I asked if she just wanted to pause the relationship. She assured me I had nothing to fear. Then she proceeded to lie to my face, not knowing I had the videos. I waited for her to leave the house and threw all of my stuff into the car, drove to my aunt's house, and sent my ex all of the videos. I kind of developed the habit of living in and out of military bags, so a lot of my stuff was actually already pretty compact. Story 17. This might sound messed up to everyone who has never been involved in such a situation, but we broke up because he was my cousin. We were so in love with each other. We had the perfect relationship. Never had a single fight. We were basically the exact same person with the exact same personality. We were so compatible and had so much passion and chemistry. It was insane. We knew each other so well that we could read the emotions and thoughts of the other just by looking at their facial expressions and eyes. Our intimate relationship was pure passion and love. So romantic, so satisfying without any raunchiness. It goes on a different level from just being base intimacy to get off. Intimacy was something to do to be close to each other and bond. There was no pressure to do intimate stuff I was uncomfortable with, which is what most of my fellow female peers used to complain about all the time. Our pleasure came from purely just attraction to each other and electric chemistry between each other. It was unreal. We were each other's first kiss and lost our V-cards together. He was the most gorgeous guy to ever exist. Blonde hair, blue eyes, broad shoulders, strong manly jaw. Something so pure and sweet about him and his sweet smile with dimples. He was a rower and had a chest like a barrel, big strong arms. When he held me, it felt like his arms were strong enough to crush me. We would spend hours just staring into each other's eyes, caressing and kissing each other. He was so selfless and would have done anything for me. I was so in love with him that I would feel intoxicated with emotion just by looking at him and being in his presence. I felt like I was the luckiest girl in the world that somebody like him could love me. We were so supportive of each other. We just never had any relationship problems or drama. Just by looking at me, he could tell how I was feeling, what I was thinking, and what I needed. And he always knew the right thing to do or say. He just got me. He understood me. Just by looking at him, I could anticipate what he needed or wanted from me, and I would do anything to make him happy. Every moment we spent together was absolute bliss. We were together for 3 years, which was hands down the best time of my life. Everybody around us hated us being together because we were cousins. We were secretive and hid the relationship at first. Gradually became more open as various people caught us and spread gossip. We broke up because our family forced us to be apart and took us away to different parts of the world. His parents actually made him leave the school where he had amazing grades and success in sports teams to go work in a dirty oil refinery as punishment. We're both married to other people and never talk to each other or see each other now. All the people who judged us so harshly were people who had relationship problems or couldn't make a relationship work. Our relationship was absolutely perfect, unselfish, mature, supportive, and the people who made us separate were people with their own personal problems and relationship problems who should have been mimicking us instead of obsessively trying to destroy what we had. We were raised together but never got a crush on each other until we became teens. When I first got a crush on him, I was worried over the fact that he was my cousin, but the moment that we were close together about to have our first kiss, I immediately lost all care that he was my cousin. After that, any guilt over doing these types of things with my own cousin vanished, and the only trouble it caused was the trouble caused by the disapproval of outsiders. After the relationship ended, I felt some guilt over it for some years. I felt like I was a creep, but I've since overcome that and I'm at peace with it all. Story 18. Gay male here. They were too arrogant to admit that they were wrong in some very important things in the relationship. There's nothing wrong with a moderate amount of pride, but if you're too hard to admit you're wrong in some things, then it's a sign of emotional immaturity. I gave him 4 chances to apologize and for us to work together. After the 4th time, I felt in my feelings that it was best that we departed. He's a very nice guy in many ways, but some things are too important to bypass and pretend that there's nothing wrong about it. Story 19. I didn't have a future I could see myself investing in. Massive debt, poor maintenance of mental health, a risky social life, and a trend of self-medicating with street substances. He was charming, talented, smart, and handsome, and I felt for him pretty hard, but the longer I was with him, the more I saw how his life was one massive train wreck. Those were all the things that would eventually topple the relationship anyway. Our romance was built on matchsticks, but I ended up realizing I wanted a man who happened to be my best friend. Years later, I know I made the right choice. Story 20. I didn't. She left me. She was overweight her whole life, and as a 22-year-old, she had bad knees because of her weight. I convinced her to see a doctor and had her back when she started taking medication and going to the gym. She started losing weight and became more confident and more proud of her accomplishment. She ended things with me and fooled around with the guy she met at the gym. Later, I found out through a mutual friend that she had been seeing that guy for weeks before the actual breakup, so she was cheating on me while I was telling her to focus on going to the gym to take care of her health. And stupid me believed she was just having friendly banter with fellow gym mates when she stayed there 3 hours a day. Nice. Yeah, she did me wrong because she cheated, but it made me realize something. She started taking care of herself while I didn't. She started getting a more positive outlook on life, which I remained depressed. She would eventually leave me, even if she didn't cheat, because I wasn't matching her anymore. I learned that I should focus on me and try to be the best version of myself, and conversely, the best option my SO has so she doesn't have a reason to even look. I'm married for 5 years and have a 3-year-old daughter. My wife just started going to the gym because of health problems. I too will start going soon because there's no way in hell I'm letting the mother of my child leave me. She's stuck with me for at least the next 15 years. Hopefully forever, because I want my daughter raised in a 2-parent household. Story 21. We were together for almost 10 years, and when we first started dating, we discussed marriage one day. Years passed. We never went on trips, never really went on dates, never did anything but game together. I loved gaming, and it was how we met, but I mentioned I wanted to go do things as a couple, and he never seemed on board. Then, getting back to the marriage thing, he one day was commenting on a friend getting married with having their first child with, "I just don't see myself ever getting married." That really hurt, and I held on for a while, hoping he would change his mind, but he never did. Then I just sort of fell out of love with him. I never felt like I was appreciated, nor did I feel like he ever wanted to help me when I was struggling in life. I wasted most of my 20s on that guy, but I'm happily married and have a wonderful 2-year-old daughter with my soulmate. We've been together for 7 years and married for 5. I think sometimes it can take a while to get where we need to be, and there can be a lot of heartache along the way, but it's worth it. Story 22. Well, she's the single worst human being I've ever met. Manipulative, cruel, constantly threatened me with false accusations of violence, had a thing for authoritarianism, was racist, cheated on me multiple times, and would lie constantly. Back then, I justify it by her psychiatric disorder, but after studying it and meeting a lot of people with the same one, I got even more disgusted by that horrible thing. You may ask why I dated her. None of this showed up until I was deeply in love. After that, I went through a year of the blazing flames of hell. constantly and desperately trying to escape that mess, but it isn't as easy as it sounds. Been free for over 2 years now and got a marvelous girlfriend who's the exact opposite. Guess life felt like it should give me one of its most valuable jewels after all that person made me go through. Story 23. Trust issues. They kept expecting or claiming I was going to cheat on them, checking my phone for texts from other people. Never did. They admitted they'd cheated on previous partners. They didn't have any reason to believe that was the case yet, but it was clear there was no future for the relationship if there wasn't a proper foundation of trust. Not to mention unresolved problems from their past that they refused to address. Part of the reason for the mistrust. I'm not saying I did a stellar job at the relationship. I'm sure there are a good many things I mishandled that only made things worse instead of better. The trust issues weren't solely theirs by any means. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 24. I started a new job and met a guy who called me gorgeous, bought me gifts, brought me a coffee or a chocolate bar into work when he knew I was on shift, made lots of eye contact with me and made me feel like I was the type of woman a guy would be lucky to be able to date. In contrast, the guy I was dating when I started that job didn't even ask me how my new job was going. Didn't really want to do anything other than sit in and watch TV, never complimented me or made me feel special or taken care of. I broke up with my ex and about 3 weeks later we went on a date with my colleague, who I've been in a relationship with for 4 years now, and I couldn't be happier. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't feel special or appreciated, someone out there may be better suited to you. Story 25. I had a nasty temper and short fuse, was emotionally and verbally cruel, and was convinced I was seeing other guys. We dated for about 6 weeks, and then he made a comment about how, if you ever cheated on me, I would end you and hide you. I didn't break up with him on the spot because of the temper and threat. I waited about a week until I was physically away from him and about to move house. He knew my lease was up and had hinted about moving in together, so he wouldn't know where I lived anymore and I would be safer. Story 26. After 6 months, he quit his job and wouldn't get another one. He thought calling his parents to help pay a portion of his bills and for his pets was sufficient. We were 27 at the time. He started going to school for IT full-time to weasel out of getting a job because it is time-consuming, and he thought a semester of school loans to pay his bills was going to make me happy. He started failing school because he started getting into dark web pills. I was going to work for 11 hours a day just to come home to him, completely canned out and playing PS4. The house was a mess. The sink was full of dishes, and he just wouldn't do anything until I got home, and all of a sudden, he was too busy to do anything with me because he needed to get off the PS4 and do things once I walked in the door. He also stopped being intimate with me after like 3 months. I kick myself in the butt for this all the time. Not so much anymore, but I let this go on for almost a year and a half, hoping it would get better and he would go back to the way he was when we first started dating. I gathered up all my belongings, which is literally everything. The furniture, the dishes, the appliances. He came in with a bag of clothes. I left him with exactly that and a fridge full of food, some pots and pans, and I paid an extra half a month of rent for him. I went and got my own place and told the landlord what was happening and I wasn't re-signing the lease. I didn't want him to be homeless, but I wasn't going to be his cash cow anymore. If they don't actually like you and they're just using you, they will make it very clear. Story 27. She had a series of affairs, culminating with her announcing that she would rather spend New Year's Eve with her new boyfriend instead of with me, her husband of 10 years. We were divorced 3 months later. It'll be 20 years ago in March this year. I haven't spoken to her in probably 15 years, and the last email I received from her was about 10 years ago, telling me that her dad had passed away. I'm now happily married and the grandfather of a 4-year-old. For my stepdaughter. Things turned out good for me. Story 28. She just can't bring herself to follow through with anything, so when I started to catch her in lies, she started calling me a narcissist. Literally, she said I was a narcissist because she thought she deserved to lie with no consequences, so I was being unreasonable by asking for a little accountability. Then she pretended her kid got sick and she needed to focus on not being a bad mother. She did no such thing, and as it turns out, she doesn't care about her kids that much at all. She couldn't just tell me the truth. She made up a story to make it easier for her. She's a coward. It's so low to use her kid as a cover story. That's just a terrible move. Terrible move. And yes, that is a bad mother. That's the kind of thing bad parents do. I hope her kids learn not to be like her. Story 29. My son's father is a great guy, but we're just two very different people. Total opposites in almost every way. He's an extrovert and really a great salesman. I'm an introvert who really can't handle that constant swarm of humans. He likes to talk about everyone he's ever met, what they're doing, how they're doing, all the gossip. I don't even want to hear it. It wears me down. He only likes reality shows. I can't stand them. I like science fiction, fantasy, anything that stokes the imagination. He's bored by it. He's also an alcoholic, but he's been sober the past 5 or 6 years, which I'm glad about. His new lady was able to help him there. I couldn't do it, though I tried. In the end, it was just that, all the differences piling up. The drinking didn't help, but it was the final straw. There was the lack of anything we could talk about that held both our interest. He honestly gets along with everyone. I've never met anyone so well liked. And even though we're not together, we're still friends. I'm really glad about that. Story 30. She was an alcoholic, and I thought I could help her. She'd get intoxicated and be violent towards me, hurting me one night because I told her our stove was broken. Then she punched me in my broken ankle because I asked her if it would be alright if I turned her music off so I could play PlayStation. She said yes, and then when I turned the music off, she got all angry. I went for a smoke with her roommate, and when I came back inside, she was mad I wasn't spending time with her and tried to harm me. After that, I phoned my brother and told him to come pick me up. After 2 weeks of screening calls, I arranged a ride with a couple of friends, and we went and packed my stuff up, and I was gone. Story 31. I grew up and he didn't. We were in our early 20s, and I was starting to think seriously about what I wanted to do with my life. I had no plans other than partying and going to raves, which I indulged in as well for a while, but I eventually grew tired of it and wanted to focus on my future. He never grew out of his party phase. He thought about it constantly, and I eventually realized our lives were too separate for us to continue on. I broke up with him 8 years ago. Last I heard, he still parties frequently and has no real plans for his future. I've since gone to grad school, gotten married, and I'm hoping to start a new family with my husband in the next few years. 19-year-old me very much loved 19-year-old him, but 19-year-old me also loved going to raves and doing recreational substances. Once that version of me ceased to exist, we had nothing in common anymore. Story 32. We were both 22 at the time, together for 2 years. He was a mooch, relying on everyone around him, mostly me and my dad. He had no ambition or drive, just your typical young guy who doesn't want to work and wants to say, forget the man, but is really hurting everyone around him by financially relying on them. He told me he was too stupid to get a job. The truth was that he couldn't stand having anyone tell him what to do. Every job he ever got, he quit because the boss told him to take out his earrings or asked him to fill in for someone. Sometimes you gotta do things you don't want to do, and yeah, that sucks. Just grow up and be an adult. He also told me that if we ever had kids, it was staying home with him, not me. There were no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, there was that one time his older sister's baby ate substances from her and her baby daddy's supply. And the time we were at her house and her children were screaming and crying for her from the other room, separated by a baby gate, while she sold a baggie of substance to some dude. Really made me think, holy cow, do I want this to be my family? The answer was hell no. I got the heck out, even moved 2,500 miles away from his broke butt and never looked back. Story 33. I'm just going to put this here because it makes me feel better. We broke up because it was likely we wouldn't survive a long-distance relationship. She got a dream job in Chicago and moved there. Within the first month of getting there, I booked a flight to see her. I lived on the East Coast at the time. I'll be the first one to tell you I didn't know what love was until I met this girl. She checkmarked every box I had, and even some I didn't know I had. I've done my fair share of substances, and I will tell you there are no greater spikes than love. Anyway, the trip is going fine. We had planned dinner after she got off work. We were going to get pizza. I spent all day going through my mind how I was going to tell her I loved her for the first time, etc. I'm standing outside of her work and going to walk her home, and she came outside and looked at me. I knew right then that we were going to have the conversation the relationship was over. Her energy was way off. She wasn't the same person. We went to dinner, and I was preparing myself for the conversation we were going to have when we got back to her place. Sure enough, we got back and we both laid in bed and she cuddled up next to me, and we had that talk. Both of us completely devastated, but knowing that it was the right thing to do. Story 34. He slowly started to move himself into my house after I lost both my parents, 10 days apart from each other. Depression was eating me alive, and one day, about a month later, I looked around to see all his stuff around me. We talked about the chances of him leaving his parents' house to stay with me, but I still felt it was too early in the relationship, and I feel like he took an opportunity at my low point to make that move. He also started to try and discipline my 2-year-old in ways I do not operate as a mother. Never paid any bills for groceries. His mother hated my guts. Pooped his pants at work. We work at the same company and thought it was funny enough to tell all our coworkers about it after working a full 12-hour shift. Story 35. She started staying at my place because she was living with her parents, which was fine, but then about 6 months in, she started staying a lot, sometimes in the house all day while I was at work. She only worked part-time, 15 to 20 hours a week, and only made enough money for her own bills and gas. She didn't contribute much for rent or groceries, but was pretty much living in my house, and now I was paying for 2. She said she was looking for better jobs, but kept procrastinating and just lazing around all day. It was clear she was comfortable living this way. My landlord kept seeing her vehicle always parked there and asked if I had another person living in the house because then rent would go up another $100 a month. I actually really liked her, but I couldn't watch someone waste their life and bring me down with them. Story 36. They broke up with me, but I had the last say before I was completely over. I let her know how pathetic, unbearable, and emotionally damaging the relationship was for me to go through. I told her all the things I felt I could put up with and how I will be terrified to ever say I love someone again after how her and her family treated me. I thanked her for breaking the relationship off, as I told her that I'm finally going to heal now that everything is over and improve my life. Once what I said was said, she stood there humbled as heck. I would be darned if someone bent over backwards the way I did for her. I don't miss any of it, and count each day further away from the breakup as a blessing. I'm finally where I want to be in life, with a dream job not that far out of reach. I never would have gone here with her. So yes, I'm thankful I got broken up with. Story 37. Her friends told me if you didn't break up with her, they'd stop being her friend. I was 16, going into college. She was 14 and had 2 school years left, live in the UK. I thought it was the best thing to do for her. She could find someone new and keep her friends. I never told her why, and 10 years later, she still gives me dirty looks if we ever see each other. She told a friend of mine I really hurt her, was a coward, and did it by text because I couldn't face her. Karma might be a real force because I've been single ever since. Last I heard, she was in a 7-year-long relationship and engaged, so I still feel like I did the right thing. Although after I finished the relationship, her friends started to tell people I had S-hate her, and although she never told anyone I had, she didn't stop them from spreading it. Fortunately, her mom worked at the school she attended and heard the awful rumors being spread about me. Instantly took my side and reached out, knowing he hadn't done anything. It went no further than rumors and threats, but it was still a scary time for a 16-year-old. I've had intimacy issues ever since. Oh, and by the way, we never had intimacy. I was pure, and so was she, to my knowledge. The most intimate thing we ever did was kiss. Story 38. She started having doubts after New Year's Eve. We were together for over a year, and she started having doubts. We were different in a lot of things, maybe even in our lifestyles, which I do get to a certain degree. In those 3 weeks that have passed, she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, all because of those doubts. Her feelings started to change towards me, and I knew something was up, but I thought it was the stress of the job, which she actually said was the reason. But of course, it wasn't. I genuinely knew there was something wrong because I started to get anxious. I was a little bit angry at the smallest things, but I didn't say anything because I thought it was her work. She was too scared to hurt me because she still loved me in a way, but the doubts were just too much because of our differences. In a way, I do get it, but on the other hand, you're still 2 different people. You can't expect to be an exact copy. I even like it when there's a bit of a difference. I even told her that. You can learn from each other. I just hated that people don't fight anymore for each other. I know it's over. I'm trying to accept it. It's not worth it to keep feeling like this. She's happy that she can make that difficult decision because it was hurting her a lot. I even comforted her when we broke up because I couldn't break down. Not yet, anyway, but it did happen. So yeah, thanks for reading my sad story. Story 39. Not long after we met, her father was diagnosed with a debilitating terminal illness that progressed over several years. It took up my partner's time and emotional capacity almost completely. I totally understood and did my best to help. When he passed, she was grieving deeply for a long time, which, again, I totally understood and did my best to help. After that, she threw herself into study, barely lifting her head up from her books for several years. I essentially lived and socialized as a single person, but she had been through a lot, so I didn't complain or fight. I loved her and wanted her to be happy. But after years, being virtually invisible and really only existing in the relationship as a means to support her emotionally and financially, I realized I'd put my life on hold and sort of lost myself. I was sad and lonely. We talked it through, tried to work on it, and went to counseling. It helped for a while, but we weren't able to get back to 50-50. I asked to spend time alone. She agreed and moved out. Although we talked to each other a few times a week and hung out occasionally, never got back together. 2 years later, she called to apologize. She's been in therapy for a while, and in processing the relationship, she concluded that she had basically ignored my needs and focused on her own. Apparently, her father had done the same thing to her mother, and she never wanted that to happen to her, so she had subconsciously adopted her father's way of relating. We're still friends. I'm alone now, but not lonely. Life is rich and full. I've never been happier. Story 40. So we initially broke up because we were both going to college and I didn't want to try long distance. Her response was to punch me in the face, and when I tried to leave, she pushed me down the stairs. After that, she would not let me leave, saying if I did, she would end it all. After several hours calming her down, I finally got out of her house. When I unlocked my truck, she sprinted out of her house and jumped into the bed of my truck and would not move. Anyway, after a semester of college, I was kind of depressed and ended up getting back together with her. I'm an idiot. We dated for about a year, and then I found out she was cheating on me. Story 41. I had a panic attack in front of him. We talked about it before, and he said he knew how to handle those. And he proceeded to harm me several times while yelling at me to calm the heck down. Then, when it was over, he looked at his phone, said, "Well, this was an awkward date. I should get going," and left me on the ground, alone. He also made me stay at his place, and when I flipped the pillow he gave me to sleep on, it was full of makeup that wasn't mine. And he casually said, "That's my ex's. That's why I turned it around. Duh." Also, I spent Christmas alone crying that year because my suffering stepfather was too far away for him to drive me to him. I had no driver's license back then. He didn't take me to his family, nor did he bring me a gift because we only knew each other for 3 months, so this is too quick. So yeah, such a gentleman. I don't know what pushed him to dump me. Story 42. He texted me a few days before I was supposed to meet him in his new state. The plan was we were saving up for him to move in with me, away from his manipulative family. At least that's what I thought the plan was. I guess the actual plan was to use me for suggestive pictures until he got in with a lesbian friend of his that I didn't need to worry about. Honestly, I wish I could go back to the time we took a break and just not take him back. The guy was hanging out with a teenager from work and said he wasn't cheating on me because, and I quote, She has a boyfriend, and also she's young, she doesn't want me. Looking back, he never said he didn't want her, and he kept talking to her in secret 5 times. I didn't even ask him not to talk to her at first. At first, I just asked that they not be all huggy at work because that weirded me out, because they've been friends for like a month. She was there when he gave me my Valentine's present. I found out from his coworker that they thought those two were dating and didn't know I existed. It was a lot. I can't say why I stayed, other than a profound lack of self-respect and self-love at the time. Man, I don't miss that piece of crap. I just wish he'd send back my stuffed animals. Story 43. We met when I was 20 and he was 22. We always discussed having kids at some point, preferably before 30, but after we both graduated. 6.5 years later, we both graduated. Had a nice 2-bedroom apartment and had a stable job and was hoping to start a family. He had a master's degree in history and was doing odd jobs and writing books, trying to figure out what he wanted to do for a living and still unsure about the whole family thing. We'd argue a lot, and all of my suggestions about career options were terrible, according to him. I decided that since he didn't know what he wanted out of his life, he could go and figure himself out alone. 3 years later, he's studying what I suggested before and is living with his new girlfriend. I'm getting married in May and expecting my first child with a man who loves me dearly and wants this future with me. Honestly, my ex is a good dude, but not the right fit, and it was definitely the best choice for both of us to go our separate ways. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.